At the age of 15, Cicero begins to drink, and his mother begins to attend a spiritualist center.
And since then, my mother started working in this business. At the time, I believed that it was a God thing, even because she assisted people, Then my mother started to attend the denomination, right? Only she attended this denomination, but she kept doing some spiritual work, And then when I went to church, she invited me, On that day, she manifested with an evil spirit, And the spirit said it was going to finish her off. And then my eyes opened up and I said, well, wait a minute. All that time I thought it was a God thing, But how can it be godly if the person who is serving them all their life, how can he himself say that he's going to finish her off, to kill her? That was when I opened my heart to Jesus. I was baptized in the water. From that day on, I will serve Jesus. I will seek the Lord, because I do not accept that the devil will end my family,
Cicero's prayers are answered, and in 1994, his mother leaves the spirits, gets baptized, and begins serving the Lord Jesus.
Then in 2000, I met Vanderlucia.
In 2003, we got married. Then our first child came.
And there in the Grace of God Church, God began to bless us. And I began to be more involved with the work of God. I received a calling to become a pastor,
And after 8 years, I became pregnant with our second child. Apparently everything went well. My pregnancy, I had no problem with pressure. I didn't have any problem with diabetes.
Except we had a problem.
I was working, and I said to my nurse, right? Because at the health center, she's not a doctor, she's a nurse. I said, look, I need to take some time off because I'm too bloated. Then I went. When I arrived at the clinic, I was already with 9 months. She then tried to hear the baby's heart, and she couldn't. Hear the baby's heartbeat. She said, go there and do an ultrasound. It's because it was time for the baby to be born, and they do all kinds of weird stuff. So even then, she said to me, when it was time for the ultrasound, instead of hearing the baby's heart beating, it sounded like a bunch of drums. We only heard the noise that goes pee. There was no heartbeat, right, of the heart. Then the guy told us, he said, look, unfortunately, your baby's dead.
She had a full-term pregnancy, Only the baby was a stillborn.
Then I went and did the ultrasound, and there was a pleural effusion, fluid in the lung cavity.
My most difficult moment was when I arrived at the hospital, when I went to see the child, and at the same time I had to pick the child up and bury it.
The whole process was horrible, but the worst was being in the room. They put me in a room with 5 moms. Each mom had her baby, and I didn't have mine.
It was complicated, it was difficult, but we were steadfast in the Word, and God strengthened us, and we continued to move on,
This was in 2013. In 2014, I found out I was pregnant, with Juliana. Everything that I asked God, He did, right? God gave me insurance. I had the baby in a private hospital.
Juliana was born perfect. She was born healthy. Juliana was born very beautiful.
I love Daddy. I love my grandma, my mommy, my brother. I love being at church. I love being at Sunday school. And I love Jesus.
This filled the void, the void we had, the pain, the sadness we were feeling, and it was God comforting our hearts,
God gave us the breath of life. He gives us strength to get up every morning. It is He who opens doors, who puts us in the place we've never thought of. He is everything.